Let's stand together and sing as we're able. Come and find the Quiet Center, 374, if you're following along in Voices United.
May be seated. I am glad that in the midst of all this rain and the crowded spaces of life, you have found time, like me, to seek room for hope to enter, to be at peace and simply be. My name is Keith Howard. Reverend Michelle is on study leave and will be back in the office, I think, this week. In the meantime, I'm pleased to be here, along with Anna and the Holy Spirit, to facilitate our worship. In the midst of uncertain times, regular practices and rituals are important. And so each week we light this candle to remember the one who said and did amazing things, and of whom the early disciples testified, the light shines even in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. So we light this candle as a plea for that same Christ light to become visible in the challenges of our lives and our time, and that we may be worthy witnesses to the one they call the light of the world. This is our gift and our call. So, welcome. Whether the past week has been a good one for you or whether you can hardly remember it, whether the week has contained visits to the doctor or the hospital, or whether the biggest challenges of your week has been to stop sneaking the Halloween candy. And welcome, whether you are with us, body, mind, and spirit, or whether only one or two of those have managed to be present. We live amid uncertain times, yet in these times we choose to gather here to worship, to open our hearts to the presence of God and to one another. And we ask God to draw near, that the presence of God and the angels may be as close as our breath, and this sanctuary may vibrate from floor joist to ceiling with the sense of the presence of God. This may be an exceptional thing to ask, but we live in extraordinary times. As you well know, our meeting place is on the traditional territory of the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. And although the Lekwungen people were one of the first on the island to experience intentional settlements by Europeans, all relationships were not resolved well. So we inherit a complicated and usually unjust history of interactions. But since 1987, we as the United Church of Canada have been very intentional about disclosing and confessing our history and committing to the long road of rebuilding relationships between First Nations and those now called settlers. So it is our pledge as a church and as a congregation to be part of the conversations that focus on truth and reconciliation. So we recall the story of the land upon which we gather and the people who were its stewards for centuries. You know, for many years, our church, even perhaps like we ourselves, was reluctant to face the current reality of our world and to learn about the many forces that impacted not only our relationship with First Nations, but our traditional structures, the current realities of young families, and even those of us who view middle age through the rearview mirror. To move away from the stance of pretending not to know, to engage and to learn, requires courage and a deep intentional commitment to strengthen our spirits, to open our hearts, and to open our minds. Open our hearts. Okay, you may be seated. Now I notice that sometimes people come to the front now. Children, short people, other people. You don't have to. I know I'm different. And different makes one suspicious. Big day tomorrow. Halloween is what I was referring to. Yeah. Are you guys going to dress up to be anything? What are you going to be? Hermione? Oh, a classic figure. Good. Even I know who that is. That's good. Sometimes in Halloween people hide, and then they jump out and scare people. The story about Jesus this morning is about a man whose name was Zacchaeus, who was hidden kind of from view, and when he came into view, people were not sure about him. This is the story. Jesus was coming to the city of Jericho and walking through it. And in Jericho, there was a certain man named Zacchaeus, who was the chief tax collector, and he was very rich, and the people actually didn't like him very well. But he wanted to see Jesus, but he was too short, and there were so many crowds that he couldn't see. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree in order to have a very better view. Jesus came to the spot of the sycamore tree. He looked up and he said, "Zacchaeus, get down here. Hurry and come down." So Zacchaeus did. He came down from the tree very quickly. Jesus said, "I want to come to your house today." And Zacchaeus was very happy about that. But the people all around said, "Oh, look at that. Jesus going to the house of a sinner, a tax collector. They didn't like those people. And Zacchaeus then said, half of what I have, half of my possessions, I will now give to the poor. And if I have cheated anyone, I will give 4 times the amount that I have cheated back to him. Jesus said, today salvation has come. For this one is a child of Abraham, and the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. And that's the story of Jesus and our faith. What was the part of the story that you liked the most? Jumping out of the tree? It used to be a common occurrence when I was young. Often my friends would have broken arms. Any other parts that people liked? Sorry? Jesus went to his house. Okay. Perhaps a different ethic of hospitality. There's something there I got to come and see. Anything else that you were interested in that you thought was good? Yeah, I didn't hear what she said, but I heard the voice. There's hope for everyone. Good. It's often like God. I didn't hear what she said, but I heard the voice. Anything else? Did you notice that when we ask this, many of the adults kind of go, they pretend not to know. Yes?
I was thinking that it's never too late. I guess it's the same idea that we've always felt for everyone, but that in Jesus taking him home, or following him home, inviting himself over, he in fact did have an impact and changed his life, and it was better for everyone. It's believing in people and giving people a chance pays off. Maybe that's the message.
Okay, good. There was actually 2 things in Zacchaeus' life that changed him. One was when the big Roman government said, you can have this job to be a tax collector, because it made him very rich, but it made all the people hate him. And the second thing that changed him was when Jesus said, I'm coming to your house. What did you think was the most important part of that story?
When Jesus went to his house, there was protest from the other people.
Mm-hmm.
When Jesus was being generous to somebody who had done wrong, sometimes it stirs a lot of anger in other people, and that makes that act of opening his heart to Zacchaeus a really hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes the actions of Jesus of generosity or whatever provoke a reaction, not always happy. Richard? That was important. Zacchaeus wanted to make sure he could see Jesus. Mm-hmm. Very significant, transforming kind of event.
I guess I'm kind of thinking along the same lines as Amira. I think the confusion and suspicion by the people of why in the world is he doing this? Why is he being is to his bad guy? Why?
It's a good question. Why do people resist Luckily, you and I don't, John.
If I were Zacchaeus, I might be afraid to invite Jesus because I know that people hate me and they might hurt me. But put those things aside and then welcome Jesus first. So I think it's really important for him to decide what is more important than what he's afraid of.
So an act of courage to actually have Jesus come to his house, given what people thought. And that's the trouble with these short stories. You miss all that internal things about, should I do this or should I not? What will it cost? Anything else that was important? Well, there's probably other things, but that we want to say?
I think Jesus just thinks of us. It's not just them. He didn't think of Zacchaeus as a them,
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of vilifying the rich people too. And I think you just have to think of people as us. I love that focus.
Right, so Jesus resisted the us and them, even though Zacchaeus was wealthy, which are big targets now. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. That was very interesting, helpful to me. Good. We're probably singing something now, Anna. I wonder what it is.
Yes, we are. I'm actually, before we sing, I'm happy to share a little bit about my experience with Taizé. This song, Come and Fill Our Hearts, is from the Taizé community. And I had, in my undergrad degree, I did a music ministry degree in Winnipeg, and we did a lot of Taizé services. They were very ornate. We had all of the instruments and all of the voice parts, and my experience of Taizé was actually quite stressful. It was a lot of pressure. And then when I went to visit the community of Taizé, I went there. I've been there twice. I went for a week and then 2 weeks. And it was so simple. The music was very simply done. The sanctuary, if you've ever been there, you know it's quite large, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people in this space just sitting and quietly singing. Sometimes it's accompanied, sometimes it's not. But the purpose of the music is not to sing perfect harmonies or have, anything ornate in the instrumentation, but rather to just soak into the words and let the music take you deeper and deeper into a sense of meditative prayer. So we're going to go through this one maybe 4 times today, but it's just going to keep happening. I'm going to decide when we're done singing, and so don't worry about counting the number of times. You'll get a clear indication from me and the choir that we're winding down, and I hope that you can find your way to feeling and experiencing these words. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. You alone, O God, are holy. I hope you can find that in a new way today. And in the style of Taizé, I'm going to say, let's sit for this. Usually we would be kneeling or sitting on the ground, so I think sitting is fine.
I don't mean to interrupt that lovely introduction, but
Yeah.
the children probably go someplace during this, and you all know where? Excellent.
That's an important detail.
Thank you.
Our reading this morning is from the book of the prophet Habakkuk. And those of you who may be expecting a new child, there's a good name right there for you. Habakkuk was a prophet who worked at the same time as Zephaniah and the one that you would mostly know, Jeremiah. And it was an incredibly stressful time, to say the very least, in the history of the people of Israel. So this is the oracle that the prophet Habakkuk saw. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not listen? Or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see wrongdoing and look at trouble? Destruction and violence are before me, strife and contention arise. The law becomes slack and justice never prevails. The wicked surround the righteous, therefore judgment comes perverted. I will stand at my watchpost and station myself on the rampart. I will keep watch to see what he will say to me and what he will answer concerning my complaint. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain on tablets so that a runner may read it. For there is still a vision for the appointed time. It speaks of the end and does not lie. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Look at the proud. Their spirit is not right in them, but the righteous live by their faithfulness. This is the story of our faith. Thanks be to God. I'm not happy. Current trends and forecasts for our congregation, the world, and even my life tempt me to despair. Climate change, the encroachment of far-right thinking that separates humanity, as Pam was saying, into us and them, war, the drought situation in the western United States, well, water continues to be diverted to golf courses around Phoenix and Las Vegas. Housing prices that effectively build a wall more robust than the walls of Jericho around our municipalities and cities. The cost of gasoline and food. I'm not happy. And I'm not even warmed up yet. My wife and I have 8 grandchildren. And I will tell you that I worry more about their future than I ever did about my children. When times are hard, fear leads us to wonder about the future. So I wonder, are we fated to continue down this path? Perhaps, no, just leave her, I like that. Perhaps you accompany me in my wondering. When we become desperate to find another way of thinking about how life could go, we are so susceptible to magic and fairy tale and the manipulation of fear-mongering. Or if we are impatient, we can go straight to despair, depression, and fatalism. Like the prophets, Jeremiah and Zephaniah, the prophet Habakkuk lived with the Babylonian Empire outside the gates, pursuing its code of war, of destruction, demoralization, and deportation. Now, being no fool, Habakkuk could read the signs. So he climbs the ramparts, the last line of defense, and lays out his case. O God, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not listen? Or cry to you violence, and you do not save me? Why do you make me see wrongdoing and look at trouble? Destruction and violence are before me. How long will I cry for help, and you will not listen. God responds, and we do not know how long this took. God responds, there is still a vision. There is still a vision. Write this down. Make it plain on tablets so that a runner may read it. Make it big enough to put on a billboard so that even those rushing to the ferry will see it. There is still a vision. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. It will come. It will not delay. There is still a vision. Powerful things. Visions. The vision of a different life for themselves and especially for their children drove the immigrant families that I knew as a youth. Their vision fueled their morality. They worked and they sacrificed to ensure their children got an education and had a way out of that smelter town. Some analysts think the situation in Ukraine comes from Putin's vision of recapturing the glory of Mother Russia. And he seems willing to stop at nothing to fulfill that vision. On this All Saints' Day, we, if only tangentially, remember all those who have gone before and whose vision led us to this society, this sanctuary, and the existence of this congregation. Functionally speaking, everyone has a vision. We may not dress it up and proclaim it passionately, but everyone has a vision. The importance of this is profound, both practically and spiritually. Because what we envision affects not only our emotions, but our spiritual life in at least two ways. First, vision fuels the soul. This is a somewhat simplistic analogy, but think of the soul as a pipeline, a conduit between ourselves and God. The soul becomes our point of connection. Now, if that conduit means of contact becomes gummed up with sludge, whatever energy, whatever sense of spirit and connection we feel with God becomes restricted. If our vision of the future is black and bleak, like a cesspool without a check valve, that blackness will flow back into our being. And we will not only feel alone, but we will have no spiritual and perhaps physical energy. So part of our work as individual Christians, and particularly now as a congregation, is to look closely at the state of our souls, if I may say it that way, and the content of our vision. What is the soul-nourishing, spirit-enlivening, body-empowering vision that excites us and fuels our days? Habakkuk sketches broadly some aspects of God's vision: justice, righteousness, truth, freedom, respect. But the details remain for us to fill in. The question is scalable for individuals, families, a congregation. What is the vision of your life for your family that you are living with? Deep down, is it right? The second impact of vision on our spiritual life is that vision creates spiritual space. When Habakkuk looked down from the ramparts, the Babylonian army was still there. In many ways, despair was warranted. When we look around at many of the challenges we face, despair is warranted. The forces are as big and formidable as the mighty Babylonians. It is not as if our recycling of paper and separating the compost is by itself going to change the course of global warming. The forces which are allied against us as a congregation and as a society are not trivial and will not be vanquished by one person's heroic action. What is that old saying? If you're not confused and tempted to despair, you don't know what's going on. Vision, God's vision for the world and for us, does not deny all the reasons that we might be tempted to despair, but simply refuses to grant despair all the spiritual space. Despair, don't be a hog. Shove over and leave some room. Depending on the circumstance, when vision enters the room of our soul and spirit, now different things may be required. In some situations, clarity of vision provides strength just to hang on, to persevere. As in the case of Martin Luther King Jr., to let the dream sustain the arduous march toward freedom. The Habakkuk passage would resonate with King. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Vision, God's vision, calls forth different things. In our time, the call of vision is not perseverance, but courage. Courage to walk toward the vision until what now seems hazy becomes clear. This walk is not easy, but it is necessary. Visions require courage and truthful speech. It can require courage to say to our children who have one idea of the care we need as we age that, no, that's actually not what I want. That will not give me the life I want. Of course, if we choose to refrain from engaging the hard soul work of clarifying vision and the tuning of our soul, we can go straight to despair. Give up vision's seat to meaninglessness, to life without purpose. Despair is an emotional contagion even more potent than COVID. It requires courage to come to the edge of darkness where dreams die and look honestly at the situation and say, no, this is not good enough. This is not God's vision, God's dream for me, for us, for the earth. And I will not yield the entirety of my soul and spirit to despair. The Virtues Project says that courage transforms fear and shame into determination. Courage embraces what must be done even when it's difficult. Courage opens us to new possibilities. We need the courage to accept the truth, pick ourselves up after a mistake, make amends, try again. Habakkuk. I will stand at my watch post and station myself on the rampart. I will keep watch to see what God will say to me and what God will answer concerning my complaints. Amid chaos, panic, and the forecast of the end of the world, we know it requires courage to stand at the watch post, to station ourselves, rather than run around joining in the chaos and the fear. Courage lets us, even compels us, to step back and look so that we can engage and learn what is required. I will stand at my watch post and station myself on the rampart. I will keep watch to see what God will say and what God will answer. Then the Lord answered and said, there is still a vision. It will surely come. Have courage to face this hour. For the sake of our soul, the soul of our congregation, the vision will come. I am not happy about the visions being broadcast as inevitable. And I'm not particularly courageous, but I have overheard the word. So I determined not to yield to despair, but to engage, to learn, to trust, to look for a way ahead. For it is the way of our people. It is the story of our faith. Thanks be to God.
Let's stand in body and spirit. We have this song that may be new to you. I think it's a wonderful song that we can use as we are seeking courage within to find those new visions to live out and the courage to live it out. This is a blessing that we can sing for each other in pursuit of that. So let's stand together, and I'll play the whole thing through once so that you get a sense of the melody. It's quite simple. You'll get it quite quickly, I promise, and our wonderful choir will help you. Verse one more time. And to you be love like the rain that falls, giving life and washing clean. Like the tree's stretched arms, keeping the birds from harm. May God's love be ever yours.
I think when it's time, you have to press that. Let us pray. Our God, we aren't anybody until we are heard, and so it's vital to us that we get heard. So hear our prayers, and let our cries come unto you. Hear our prayers for our loved ones. We delight in them. We ache with dreams on their behalf. We long to bless them. We want rid of them. We want our love to make a difference with them, and we worry when it does. Hear our prayer for our undertakings, those tasks close to our hearts to which we give ourselves and which make us vulnerable. We become paralyzed by the fear of failure. Hear our prayers for the world. There is so much wrong with it, we are afraid at times to look. Terror stalks the lives of so many. Masses go hungry. Overwhelming numbers face a lifetime of holiness. We who share the planet with all the life neglect the care of it. We who share the planet with other humans who refuse to do so The cries go up from children of the earth in all parts of the world. Hear their cries. As we know they are heard, we can bear to hear them ourselves and begin to find our true meaning and home as participants in your love of the world. Hear now our prayers for those close at hand. Bev March, Christine Green, Betty O'Hara, Jean Cathro, Ruth Wallace, Emil Gabor.
A prayer from Jackie, prayers for their neighbors, Mike and Jill, and their gardener, Christian. Prayers for Beth's former teacher and their family.
Prayers of gratitude for my oldest granddaughter who just turned 4. I'm sure her parents are really grateful, but finally
Prayers for, I'm sorry, I don't know all the names. What was it? Helene's granddaughter who just turned 4. For the people of South Korea, thank you, John. Prayers for Jan's brother-in-law, who this week goes into a care facility somewhat unwillingly, he said. For Tricia Vickers. Pam says a prayer for Reverend Michelle. Prayers that her week was full of rest and rejuvenation, and that she is ready to come back and be present and dwell. Prayers of thanksgiving for the rain. Amen. And for the time change next weekend. Heads up. I just realized I have forgotten to look at the comments online. Carol says prayers for her sister Karen as she tries to wean herself off of a couple medications. Prayers of gratitude for our former mayor and for the 8 years that she spent taking care of our city. It reminds me of what Keith just shared about a vision.
Thank you. All of this and much more that we carry upon our hearts in silence, we bring before God because Jesus said we could and we should. And it is with him that we pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. A lot of announcements on the green sheet. Just want to say that as a congregation, we're going to have many important decisions coming up. The possible sale of Threshold House, request for conversations from other congregations, making sure everybody knows the state of the finances, all that stuff. So often these issues come to the board, and while it's tempting to pretend that we don't need to be involved, the truth is that in critical times we need conversation between congregational members and members of the board. Otherwise, they operate in a vacuum, and we are not as connected as we should be. So have a look at the list of names of board members on the back of the green sheet. And if you've got things to say, talk to them, because they need to hear from you. Even if you don't have things to say, you might start talking and find out that you do. Just secondly, you may hear by the grapevine that together with Fairfield Congregation, we have applied for, we being Oak Bay United Church, have applied for and received a grant to do some disciplined work about what we need to kind of let go of and what we need to embrace as we move forward into the next chapter of our life. And the project is named Discerning Our Soul. And you will hear more about that process in the weeks to come. But just so that you know, it involves working with the congregations and the clergy, both here and at Fairfield, to identify our particular gifts, the challenges, and interests. And in spiritual terms, as we talked this morning, the work includes both soul and vision. And it will just not be a conversation to have a nice conversation, but it will issue, hopefully, in an action plan no later than the end of June. And going into this, just so you know, no particular outcome is assumed. This is not a hidden way to talk about amalgamation or any of that kind of stuff. It's just a way to say, as many of us at certain times in our life have had to move from one situation to another, as a congregation, we're having to move from one situation into another. What do we have to let go of? What do we take with us? What are the challenges and the opportunities? That's what it's about. Okay? Anything more you can ask, and I will try and answer. Oh, and I should just say, I will be working with each congregation and each clergy person individually, and a steering committee that's composed of the clergy plus 2 people from each congregation. So there you go. More than you needed to know, probably. Our prayer, as always, is, be thou my vision.
Just before we sing, I'll let you know a little bit about the key that we're singing this in today. It's probably lower than you're used to in the hymnal. Sometimes I think it's nice to approach a hymn that we know really, really well, that we can just sort of sing passively with a new key or a new feel, and then it gives us a new way to think about the words. And it also might be more accessible for some folks to sing, depending on your voice type. So that will be exciting. And speaking of singing, I'll also, gently take the opportunity to direct your notice to the announcement where I asked for any pianists or instrumentalists or singers that are interested in sharing their gifts with the church. Please get in touch with me. I would love to support your musicianship, so you can read more about that in there. Let's stand in body or in spirit to sing.
Now I rest on my
Now, as you return to your own areas of ministry, fear not, because you do not go alone or unequipped. God's dream for you, for us, and for the world has not tarnished. So go into the week with this Irish blessing. At All Hallows Tide, may God keep you safe from goblin and puka and black-hearted stranger, from harm of the water and hurt of the fire, from thorns of the bramble, from all other danger, from will-o'-wisp haunting the mire, from stumbles and tumbles and tricksters to vex you. May God in mercy this week protect you. And may the peace of God be in your heart. The vision of God the Creator power your soul. The love of God the Redeemer be in your grappling with the mystery and the challenges of life, and the courage of God, the restless renewing spirit, season your discovery of what lies ahead. Go with God, for God goes with you. Be not afraid.
We have a call and response, one of these wonderful songs in which we sing into our vision to become courageous, to be courageous, thanks to the love of Creator. And today, the choir is going to sing the call and the congregation is going to sing the response. I'll sing the response with you. Just a reminder, this is how the call and response goes. So the choir will sing, I won't be frightened. And we'll sing, no, I won't be frightened anymore. There we go. Perfect. Your love is washing over me. Your love is washing over me. Your love is washing over me. And I won't be frightened no, I won't be frightened anymore. Your mercy's washing over me. Your mercy's washing over me. Your mercy's washing over me, and I won't be frightened anymore. No, I won't be frightened anymore. Your peace is washing over me. Your peace is washing over me. Your peace is washing over me, and I won't be frightened anymore. No, I won't be frightened anymore. Thanks. Hold on. We're all out of here.